not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod, and we are live right now. Today is, It's August 13th, 2025. We're live right now on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And of course, this show will be podcasting a little bit later on. Very excited to be here with you. Want to remind all of you that you can watch our content in so many different ways, but want to remind you that those of you who are listening in podcast actually, it's a free download, but if you listen in that way, you will have advertising pop up. And I hope that you embrace that and go, woohoo, they're making it so that I don't have to pay for this content, right? If you find that that is not conducive to how you want to listen and you'd like to have it ad-free, you can head over to glow.fm/autismlive for a small monthly fee. They will get that feed to you with absolutely no advertising. So it's really up to you how you'd like to consume the feed. Want to encourage you to check us out on YouTube. There you can be, because a lot of times just to be clear, we do the show audio and video, and that was originally the intent of how we wanted people to consume. We have PowerPoints and visuals, and you can see guests and all of that. And I think sometimes it's easier to consume the content that way, but we also understand that so many of you need to take this content on the go, and so we've tried to modify so that you can listen audio only and not miss out on much, right? But feel free to consume it how you want to consume. I wanted to get all that out of the way because I'm already emotional. It's funny because I took a couple of weeks off with my son and we were touring different card centers throughout the Midwest. That's where we were, in Illinois and in Texas. And I got to meet so many people. It was really life-changing. And so many wonderful parents, so many wonderful kiddos, so many wonderful professionals that we have working for us in the card centers. And somebody asked me a question at one point. They were like, wow, you've been doing this show for 14 years now. What is left to be said? And I said, gosh, there's so much still left to be said. And there are a couple of things that I say to people when I'm sitting one-on-one with them that I haven't said on the show. And I don't know if it's because I want to take everybody into consideration and I want to be, considerate of everybody. And when I'm one-to-one with people, I tell them a story. I say, I'm going to ask your forgiveness for a moment. Indulge me, because this will make everything make sense for what I'm about to say. That years ago, when my son was in kindergarten, he went, and by the way, he was in a fully included kindergarten class, thanks to CARD. And everybody in the classroom got to know me, the other parents got to know me, and they got to know my son. And we had written a children's book together, and we came in and presented it on World Autism Awareness Day to the entire class. And we weren't being mamby-pamby about being a family that was that had an individual on the spectrum, is what I'm trying to say. So fast forward a couple of years later, I'm in the grocery store, and one of the moms from the kindergarten class came running up to me, and she said, oh my gosh, I am so glad that I ran into you in this grocery store, because my younger son was just diagnosed with autism and I didn't have a phone number for you. And Shannon, I just really know you're the person for me to ask for help and support. What do I do? And I tried to be considerate of her and what her style might be. And I said, and I said a bunch of things like, you might want to consider this, and you might want to consider this, and you might want to consider this. And because I wanted to not overwhelm her, and I wanted to not, be a know-it-all, and I wanted for her to be able to find her path. Okay, so we parted our ways, and I don't know, 1.5 years, 2 years later, I'm in that very same grocery store, and she came running back up to me. And I don't know. I think maybe I thought, oh, I'm going to hear how well things are going, and she's going to say thank you for setting me on the pathway. And that is not what happened. She came up to me and said, she had her finger in my face, and she said, I am so mad at you. How dare you? And I never want to talk to you again, and don't ever talk to me. And honestly, you're not who you say you are. And I said, my God, what did I do? And she said, I asked you for help. I asked you to tell me what to do because I had seen the success that you had had in your family. And I asked you for help. And you told me I might want to consider this and I might want to consider that. And you knew that was a lie. You knew that what you should have said to me was, you need to fight right now like it's your life on the line and it's your kid's life on the line. And you need to do X, Y, and Z like your life depends upon it. Because if you don't, you are going to kick yourself 68 ways from Sunday. She said, you knew that and you didn't tell me. And she was right. And I made a pledge right then and there that if parents asked me, that I was not going to candy coat things and I was going to tell them exactly what they needed to do. And then let them decide and say to them, the choice is now yours. And I got to be honest, I don't always do that on this show because I'm trying to take everybody into consideration. And today, I'm going to put that aside. And I'm going to make some waves, and I'm going to tick some people off, and some of you are going to write in and say, how dare you? This is not the only path. How dare you X, Y, and Z? Because I know that not everybody feels like I do. But again, I'm going to tell you what I know and what I believe and what I've seen and what the research has shown. And I'm going to tell you from a place of feeling like if you came looking for this information, you deserve to know the truth of what you need to do to get through this next period of time and survive and thrive. Now, I've labeled this what I wish every parent of a 3, 4, or 5-year-old on the spectrum knew. And I'm not going to hold back. And if you're not interested in that, please leave. And for all of my friends who are individuals who are on the spectrum, I want to say at the start of this that I love and respect you. And I would never, ever, disavow your stories. I am going to be talking about ABA, and I'm going to be talking about good quality ABA and the intensity for ABA. And I know that some of you do not agree with me, and I welcome that. Please feel free to disagree with me. And please keep telling your stories about how you feel about ABA and individual stories of what happened to you. I will never disavow those stories, but I'm talking about really good ABA where those things would never have happened to you. I want you to know I would never stand by and allow that to happen to you or anyone. I'm just talking about something that's different. But if you need to be mad at me for this show, bring it. I look forward to having all the conversations, but I'm not holding back today. And that's as much of an apology as I'm going to give for it. So here we go. This is so important to me because I feel that so many conversations that I'm having right now are with parents of 3, 4, and 5-year-olds who are completely confused, who are completely upside down, who feel like I don't know that I have the information. So here we are. I'm going to give it to you, and then it's up to you what you decide to do with it. These are your children. You have to chart the path forward, but then I'm going to be able to sleep knowing that I have made sure that if you were looking for this information, it's there. Okay, so let's leap right in, shall we? I want to start from, I think, the most important place, that when you have a child that is on the spectrum, you have got to dare to dream. You have to have hope. You have to feel like all things are possible, or at least it's possible that all things are possible, right? But you can't just dream. You have to make a plan. Now, when I say dream, I'm talking about what do you want for your child? I'm going to use myself as an example that when my son was diagnosed at the age of 2.5, he had been speaking and he lost his language. And I remember very distinctly saying to anybody who would listen, I want my child to be able to talk to me. And I know that not everybody on the autism spectrum gets to talk, but it is an overwhelming majority of people who can get to the point where not only are they capable of talking, but they're capable of conversation. And to me as a parent, and please feel free to judge me, that was important to me. I said to a parent yesterday that I cried to my husband and said, I want to be able to sit on a porch swing and look at the stars with my son and talk about the big things in life. Not the apple is red. I want us to be able to sit on the porch swing and talk about why do some people care about these things and other people care about these things, and who are we, right? I wanted to talk about the big ideas. And my friends, I have that. But part of it was I dared to dream. And then we had a plan, and then we got a whole ton of help, and we worked all the problems as we went, and yes, I got lucky. But I have a friend who has a pillow that says, the harder we worked, the luckier we got, and I feel that that is absolutely true. So, and I am somebody who can get very mired in paralysis. But it was made clear to me that I did not have time to be paralyzed, and that if I was feeling paralyzed, that I had to have a team of people to help me. So we're going to go through all of that. But you got to start with the dream. What do you want? It was made clear to me that I needed to get a picture in my head of where we were going to. I am not a mountain climber, but I have friends that are. And they would always impress upon me that when you're climbing a mountain, that most of the time you cannot see the peak. You are walking and putting one foot in front of the other on a trail, and you're on the side of the mountain. So you're looking at the side of the mountain, and if you stop to look up, often the peak is not visible. And if you could see it, you could throw your back so far that you could fall down the mountain. So you have to be walking the walk. But it's important to keep the top of the mountain in your head. The picture of what it's going to look like when you get there. Knowing that you're going to get there is part of the journey. So I had a picture in my head that I wanted my son to be able to graduate from high school knowing that he could go to college. That was my whole dream. That's not necessarily your dream. What is your dream? But I'm going to ask you to get clear on it and make a picture of it. I pictured a day when I would stand with my son with his cap and gown on, and he'd be getting ready to walk for graduation, and that I would say to him, we did everything that we could, and now the world is yours. You go and figure out what you want to do with it. But I wanted the peace of mind and the peace of gut to know that the statement was true. We did everything we could. I got that moment. In fact, I've gotten that moment twice. I was able to stand there and say that to him when he graduated from high school. And then just a couple of months ago, I stood and said the same thing to him when he graduated from college. How lucky am I? Yes, I'm lucky. But we worked hard and we had a plan. But we started with a dream. So get your dream on. Get your dream on and don't let anybody take it away from you. People will try to take away your dream and tell you where your child may or may not end up. It's all baloney. Nobody can tell you where your child is going to end up. Nobody. There is no expert on this planet that can sit and say of a 3, 4, or 5-year-old, here is exactly. They can predict. And, you know, I trust somebody like Dr. Granpeesheh to look and say, this child has all kinds of potential. Right? And the sky's the limit. Or to say this child is facing some challenges, but that's not a reason to not work. Dare to dream, but make a plan. I also want to evoke the Disney movie Brave. I know. Didn't it feel like I just took a sharp left turn? But in the Disney movie Brave, there's a young woman and she has a dream for herself, and there's her mom and she has a dream for her child. There's no autism in this scenario, but it's a person coming to fruition for themselves with a parent having a different idea. This is true throughout all of history, throughout all of storytelling, throughout all of life. We make a plan for our children, but we have to be willing to let them reveal to us where they are going. So, look, have a dream for your child. You want your child to be an astronaut? Brilliant. Have that dream. Make yourself that picture if that's what motivates you. But understand that your child might get car sick and not want to be an astronaut, right? And eventually, for all of our children, on the spectrum or not, we have to let them tell us what they want to be. But for right now, 3, 4, and 5, you have the dream. You have the dream and you move towards it. But that means you've got to have a plan. Okay, now we're going to delve into the harder stuff. Let's move on to you need good quality EIBI. Yeah, I'm talking about ABA. EIBI is early intensive behavioral intervention. And you will hear a lot of people talk about a lot of modalities. I'm going to pause for a second and say to you that the principles of ABA, if done correctly, are the thing that is considered the gold standard of treatment for autism. But guess what? It's not just that. It is considered the best teaching technique on the planet for anything or anybody. Did you know that Olympic athletes, their trainers, use the principles of ABA with them to help them to get to their best performance? Because it works. And not only that, it works on the principle that you will be able to overcome all kinds of challenges, to learn all kinds of things if it is meaningful to you, if it is worthwhile and rewarding to you. That's the basic principle of ABA. It is not about torturing someone. That is so antithetical to what ABA is. ABA says, what is it that we would like to teach you or that you would like to learn? And I'll discuss the difference between the two. But for most of us, we want our children to be able to speak. Well, there's lots of different ways to teach a child to be able to speak, right? But ABA says, hey, let's look at this from a behavioral standpoint, that if the child is not already speaking, then that means that there are challenges here for the child. How can we help them to overcome the challenges? Let's make it worthwhile for them. So that when they do, first of all, we're not going to ask them to say oscillating sprinkler on the first day, because that's a goalpost that's too far away. So we're not going to start there. We're going to start with something simple that they can do, that might be hard for them, but that they're capable of doing. And then we're going to reward them for that, so that they feel safe and this is fun. And they will want to work on it more, so that we will have more opportunities to learn and grow and learn and grow. That is what the basic principles of ABA state. It has to be reinforcing for the person, which means it has to be personally rewarding. And you can't be personally rewarded if you're being tortured. Antithetical to each other. So good intervention are people who want to work with your child and make your child's environment really reinforcing, where they are safe and they feel like I can dare to try, because even if I fall short, I'm not going to be thought less of. That I'm going, think about an Olympic skater. If we want to get them to jump and we want them to be able to do, what is it, a quadruple salchow, whatever, I don't know what the verbiage is. We don't start by saying that's where we're going to start. We don't start by saying, jump in the air and twirl. We start with just learning how to skate, right? And then how to leap, and then how to turn when you leap, right? But if we don't make it fun, if it's not exciting to the person, they're not going to continue to do it, right? Because who among us would? And if it's a challenge for a child, we've got to make it so that it is meaningful to them, because your child doesn't know all the reasons why their life will be easier if they can vocally communicate. And by the way, it is not the only mode of communication. But can we be real for a second? It is easier to communicate vocally than it is through any other mean. I am somebody who had to be on vocal rest for 4 months, had a pad, this is before iPads, had a pad around my neck where I had to write notes. Let me tell you, it's not impossible to communicate, it's just harder. And for some of our kiddos, that might be where they end up, but everybody deserves, first of all, an opportunity to try, and everyone deserves an opportunity to communicate, even if that's through an iPad, even if it's a little bit harder. That, to me, is a civil rights issue. Natalie, I just want to say, she said, I can hear your emotion behind this topic. Thank you for sharing. Lucy, I love you so much, Lucy. Lucy says, my soon-to-be 8-year-old child will be graduating from ABA soon. Oh, I'm sending you a hug. So proud of you. I feel like it's bittersweet. Love this journey. It's been both challenging and incredibly rewarding. It's also greatly increased our quality of life. I'm so proud of you, Lucy, because I've watched you through the years go through this, and I know a little bit about this. It's not an easy time. But once you begin to learn, oh, this is how my child learns, and my child can learn, and you see, okay, the sky's the limit, then you don't want to let it go, right? Lucy, there's a group of us that are really into helping parents as their kids transition. So let's reach out, let's talk, because, the fabulous Bryce Myler is the person who helped me through it. And Bryce, we got to get Bryce on this show. Bryce helped me so much to know what's the next phase, because you're not done. When you graduate from ABA, you're not done by any stretch of the imagination. It's just that you're saying, okay, now they're going to go learn all these things in the real world without having a place and a time to incubate it first before doing it. And it sounds like he's ready, and that's something you should be really proud of, because you did it. You did it. But now there's more to do, as there always is. Okay, so I want to be clear that there are some amazing people doing ABA out there. Amazing people. And then there are people who are not doing ABA, and they're not doing it. They're saying that it's ABA, but they're not doing it. And I am horrified when I see this. And I have seen some terrible cases. And a parent asked me yesterday, well, what kinds of questions do I ask to know if it's a good ABA provider or not? And one of the ones that I've had in my arsenal for a long time has been, when you're sitting and talking with a prospective ABA provider, to say to them, okay, tell me one thing that you would like to teach my child. And then if it's something that you agree with, go, oh, that's great. I'd like to. So tell me, how will you teach this to my child, and how will you plan for generalization from day one? Or just say to them, and how will you plan for generalization? Generalization is when your child is able to learn from the examples that have been given, so we don't have to teach it every single way. Toilet training is a big, big example of this, but everything that you teach your child needs to be generalized. Everything. And it should always, there should be a plan from day one. You don't start teaching without a plan to generalize, or you're going to mess this up. And perfect example is toilet training. If you do not plan from day one, this is how we're going to teach this, and this is how we're going to generalize it, what you end up having is a child who cannot go to the bathroom except at home. We all know these children. Every year, this time of year, people write to me and say, I don't know what to do. We're in a hotel. We've been here for 10 days, and my child has not had a bowel movement, and I don't know what to do. But your child doesn't know how to have a bowel movement any place than at home, because someone messed up. Someone didn't plan for generalization. If you know from day one that we want this child to be able to poop in every potty there is in the world, then we're going to bake that into the plan, which means we get them to poop in the downstairs bathroom, then we get them to poop in the upstairs bathroom, and within a 24-hour period, we get them to poop at Target and to poop at Trader Joe's. And I'm sorry, it's probably not good for those companies to say poop in their name, but you know what I'm saying. that we plan for it from the beginning so that we don't create a rigidity where your child thinks it only happens here. And this is true for everything. I always use the example when my mother taught me how to drive. She wasn't teaching me how to drive on the street around our house. She was trying to teach me how to drive on any street anywhere in the world. Well, not places where we drive on the opposite side of the road. Yes, Lucy says quality ABA matters. So generalization is the first thing that I ask because it kind of separates, a lot of people. If they're like, oh, well, we'll generalize later on. No, you're with the wrong people. There are other questions that I want to ask too, like, how do you feel about stimming? And what do you do to eradicate stimming? Now, this is a trick question because I don't want to hear somebody say that they're eradicating stimming, right? Because that's not the ticket. Stimming are the things that your child does. First of all, stimming is a misnomer. It's automatically reinforced behavior. Stimming stands for self-stimulatory, but sometimes they're behaviors that stimulate your child, and sometimes they're activities that help your child be grounded so that they're not stimulated, right? And the thing with self-stimulatory behavior or automatic reinforcing behavior is that it's there for a reason. And the basic principle of ABA is that there's nothing your child does without a reason. Nothing. And if we understand what the reason is, then we can help them to be able to get the same feeling from something else that doesn't prevent them from learning and so on and so forth. But we have to start with the basic principle. So I want to know from the company, do you eradicate stimming? And what I find is that we have companies that are on both ends of this spectrum. Some who are like, oh yes, we eradicate stimming and I don't want to see that. That's not the ticket. We want to know, how do you find out? I want to hear the correct answer is we would look at what the function of the behavior is. And then we would try to replace something that gives the same feeling to your child, but doesn't prevent them from learning how to write, for instance. So that's the answer that I want to hear. But the other answer that I don't want to hear is, oh, we never intervene with self-stimulatory behavior, because that's not the ticket either. Sometimes kids are injuring themselves with self-stimulatory behavior. And I don't want to hear that, oh, anything that they're doing, we would never intervene, because if they're hurting themselves, yes, we need to, right? There are many other questions too that I like to ask. I like to ask the philosophy of, how do you feel about intensity? I have told the story before about a year and a half ago. I sat in on a meeting with an ABA provider with a friend whose child, they weren't eligible. They didn't live close to a card services, so they were getting ABA from somebody else. And I sat in, and this was a child who was about to be 4, and they had prescribed 10 hours of ABA. And I asked them, why? Why is this your philosophy? And the BCBA, there were 3 BCBAs on the Zoom call, and the BCBA said, well, that's what research has shown to be effective. And I said, can you tell me the name of the research study that you are quoting? Because I know perfectly well it doesn't exist. And I'm not a BCBA, And she said, well, I don't know the name of the study. And I said, well, can you find out it for, because I know it doesn't exist, right? I know this is BS. She is lying, or she is unqualified to be a BCBA. I don't know which, but I was incensed. That is not what the research shows. The research has been very clear. If you are interested in studies, I keep 8 studies on the desktop of my computer in case parents have questions that are like, there are so many more studies since then, but I'm not a researcher. So I had a researcher give me like the 8 studies that are like, the ones that get replicated on a regular basis and that show different elements of ABA. So if you want, I'm happy to send them to you. Write to me, Shannon at autism-live.com. But I know that there is research that says, especially for kiddos in this age range, there is the question of intensity. So let's go on to the next slide. Because you know how, do you have realtor friends? and they say location, location, location. Well, I want to say to you intensity, intensity, intensity. Because what we know is that right now insurance is paying for ABA because of a bunch of studies that showed that intensity worked. And that is why they're willing to pay for your ABA. But unfortunately, almost no one is getting that intensity, and it makes me want to light my hair on fire and run screaming through the streets. Because and I speak to BCBAs and I go, who voted intensity off the island? I don't understand this at all. We know research has shown that for this age range, 3, 4, 5, that it's got to be 25 to 40 hours. And my friends, I just have to say to you, let's think back to the first slide where we talked about the dream that you have. And if you, like me, want to be able to look at your child and say we did everything that we can, would you skimp and give the 25, or do you want the 40? I wanted the 40. I saw what the 40. Listen, in the beginning, I didn't. The first time somebody told me they were going to give me a 40-hour prescription, I about had a heart attack. I was like, my child's not even 3 years old. That's a full-time job. Are you out of your mind? Because that's the normal reaction, right? Anybody with me? Can I get an amen? But here's the thing. I'm an adult, and I looked at the research, and I watched a little boy who was 2 years older than my son who was talking, and I watched him interact with his behavior technicians, and I saw how he was learning. And I realized, oh, this isn't work for them. These behavior technicians make it be like Disneyland. If they're doing a good job, and listen, this is the big asterisk, right? They got to be doing a good job. We talk all the time on the show about the fact that, Dr. Grampiche says it all the time, I've got to get t-shirts made. It has to be fair, and that means it has to be fun. So it has to be fun and fair, and if it's not good ABA. But if it is fun and fair, if you take your child to Disneyland, is it exhausting for them? You get over that, right? It is. It's exhausting. But we all get over it because it's fun. And usually it's fair at Disneyland. Occasionally, lines are long. But it's fun and it's fair. And so your child will hang with it and they will learn and grow. And we don't go, oh no, it's just too long of a day. We don't. It is intense at Disneyland, but it's okay because it's fun and it's fair. We know, just stop and consider for a minute. You want to learn a language? You want to learn how to speak French fluently? What is the French tutor going to say to you? Oh, you need to be immersed in it. Language takes so much time to learn, and the quickest way we learn it is to be fully immersed in it. So the truth of the matter is that while the studies have shown very clearly that it's between 25 and 40, but I would do the 40 because more studies have shown better outcomes closer to 40 than 25. The truth of the matter is it's all started from the Young Lovas project, which Dr. Grampiche is the only one of the investigators from that study that is still alive. And so I look to her. I'm like, what are people missing? Because that was the first study that was done that was shown how effective ABA could be. And then study upon study was done that replicated the results. But I always say to her, going back to the original study, what are people missing? And she says the intensity, but she's not just talking about the hours. She's talking about the fact that in that original study, the kids did 40 hours a week at a center, but that was just the beginning of it. They chose 40 hours because they knew that's how long the parents were at work. But the truth was that they were also teaching the parents how to do what they were doing at the center at home, because the goal was that every waking hour was an educationally enriched environment for those children. That's how intense it has to be. So I want to say to you, when your 3, 4, or 5-year-old gets evaluated, an autism expert gives your child a prescription and says, this is the number of hours that we're recommending. Now, for the mom that I was just talking about, I'm just going to say the incompetent person gave her 10 hours. And she wouldn't know, right? But I am telling you, if your child is 3, 4, or 5, and you have gotten a prescription for less than 25 hours, I want you to throw the biggest fit that there is and threaten to report them to the BCAB for their licensure, because they should know better. And I want to say to you that if you're 3, 4, or 5-year-old, let's say you've gotten a prescription for 30 hours, I want you to argue with them. I want you to push for 40, because the truth of the matter is that if you fuss, the insurance company will give you 40 hours. For a 3, 4, or 5-year-old who's just starting out on their ABA journey, they'll give it to you. They're not going to give it to you for very long. This is where I'm making waves. They're not going to give it to you for very long. So you have to take advantage of that first authorization and show them that you mean business. And this is where I was wrong talking to that mom that I was talking about in the beginning. I should have said this to her. You need to act like this moment is everything in the world. That every battle that comes after this is less important than this one. Fight for the 40 hours. Fight for it like your life depends upon it, because your child's ability to get to their best outcome 100% does. You will win. Now, it's gotten shakier and shakier over the last couple of years, but you will win, because there have been lawsuits from parents who have sued saying, look at the research, you did not offer me what was appropriate. So you stand on their shoulders, those brave people who filed those lawsuits, and you get that 40-hour program, and you use it like your life depends upon it for at least a year, because they're going to start to take it away from you. In the second year, they're going to tell you, oh, we're only going to fund 32 hours. And you know what? You fight to get the 38 hours or the 36 hours. You fight all along the way. It'll never be as big of a fight as just saying in the beginning, I want those 40 hours. But it does matter. Let me pause for a second to talk about compound interest. Do you know about compound interest? I'm not a financial person, but about how, if you take $1 and every day you add $1 to it, right? So that I'm getting it wrong already. There's the golf metaphor that if the first hole you say, okay, we're going to do $1, but then we're going to double it every hole, right? So by the time you get to the last hole, it's like $1 million because you're building on what is already there. Think about when you go to the gym. If you go to the gym and you go 3 times a week and you're there for an hour, okay, it's not that it's not going to make no difference, but you're not really going to change how you look, right? That's not enough to change things. But if you start going 4 hours a day, right? What you get done in 4 hours, and then you come the next day and you're going to build upon that, you start to see a real difference. And for people in Hollywood, when they want to look cut for a movie, they go 8 hours a day. And in a very short period of time, they look significantly different. This is true for all things. So you've got to hit it hard in the beginning. I'm going to talk about school in a minute because I think it's the biggest deterrent to getting that. But intensity, intensity, intensity. If you give less, the reason why we don't want to do less than 25 hours with a 3, 4, or 5-year-old is that, you know what happens? Your child goes and they're trying to learn this thing that's hard for them, and they never quite can get it because they just don't have enough practice. So it becomes frustrating, and then they don't want to try, right? We need to get them over that hump. We need to get them to the place where they succeed and they go, look, I can do it, which makes them more excited to try it the next day. So it is unkind to do less. And if it is fun, and if it is fair, your child will thrive. I saw that clearly in the child that we saw, and then I saw it clearly in my son. Some days, does your child have a hard day? Yes. Yes, that's absolutely true, because they don't want to change what they're doing. They're used to doing it a certain way. Are we not all like that? If I'm used to, we just got told that we're going to change the way we're doing something, and I was like, oh no, I don't want to change my procedure, right? But if it's made fair and fun for me, I'm willing to try it, right? And that's what we always need to be mindful of with kids. Make it fun, make it fair, and give them enough opportunity to learn so that they get to success. Even a small amount of success, that's what builds their self-esteem. To do less is unconscionable, and the science shows that clearly. So fight to get the hours and then fight to use the hours. And I mean fight, you guys. Fight with whoever you have to fight with to get them. Okay, on to the next slide, which I think is the school slide. Yes, because we got to talk about this. And I'll tell you something. It's not just the school, it's everything. If you have a 3, 4, or 5-year-old who's been diagnosed, you are someone, first of all, I got to tell you, you're doing a great job, because the statistics show that most of the kids are getting a diagnosis at 6, which is horrible. It's horrible. So if you've gotten the diagnosis and your child is 2, 3, 4, or 5, you're an extraordinary parent. And that also means that you didn't sit on your hands and do nothing. You went out and found services. You found things to fill your child's day to try to make it an educationally enriched environment. And for that, you're amazing. You're absolutely brilliant. And I want to say that when your child turns 3 and you have an autism diagnosis, the school legally has to offer you a program. They have no choice. They have to offer you a program. And if your child comes to their school, then they will get some money for your child being there. And this is important to note, because schools are built to just grow and grow and grow. There's no end. They can always add a trailer to make another classroom, right? They can always add more teachers, because that's the way school is funded. So if your child doesn't come to do their early intervention autism program at the school, they don't get that money. That money is poof, it is gone. There is no way to recoup it. And I am a former teacher, and I love school. I really, truly do. However, hear me say this. School is not the right place for your 2, 3, 4, or 5-year-old on the spectrum. Now, is that true for all kiddos? No. So I'm going to put an asterisk there. But for almost all of our kids, it is not the right place, for a bunch of different reasons. First of all, if your child has an autism diagnosis, it means that they're having trouble with language and they are having some level of trouble with social skills. And school is like the expert ski hill for both of those things. And if your child goes and they don't have the right support to handle the fact that they are not able to completely advocate for themselves language-wise, and they don't have social skills to deal with whatever the social construct is of their classroom, they are fodder for bully, and it is very likely that stuff in the classroom will become aversive to them. Either they will feel left out, or they will be left out, or they won't understand what's happening. Do you like to go someplace where you don't understand what's happening, and that where you get marginalized and you don't know what's happening? No, nobody does. Please don't do that to your children. Also, the research has already been done on the difference between doing ABA intensively and doing school, and which has a better result for 2, 3, and 4, and 5-year-olds. And guess what the research shows clearly? By far, that the children getting ABA make so much more progress. And that is when things are ideal in the school. So what is it like now? I have heard so many reports from parents in the last couple of days as they go back to school about how different things are at school right now. I know that the director of education, the secretary of education, had said that no student who has an IEP is going to have a loss of services. But that is not what people are reporting to me. And this makes sense to me because also that same secretary of education wrote a report saying stop doing a whole bunch of things that are written into IEPs. So where is the funding for all of this? And I'll tell you, it's not there. So even on the best day at school, when school is as funded as it has ever been, I would still not send a 3, 4, and 5-year-old to school unless a couple of things were in place. That's on the best day, but this is not the best day. Your child, please hear me say this, deserves better than to be put at school. Now, do we want them to go to school eventually and be successful? 100%. And where is the place that we send them to get ready for school? That is ABA. Good quality ABA. Hopefully your ABA program has a school readiness program that's working on all the things that your child needs to be able to learn to go to school. If you don't have that in your ABA center, ask them about it. More and more ABA providers are providing that, where they are specifically having classroom time with multiple kids, working on things so that they have a ramp up to be able to handle what's going to happen at school. But they also have the rest of the day where they're working one-to-one and catching up and learning in the fastest way possible. So please don't send your kids to school right now. Now, I always like to say every child is different, and talk to your autism expert and talk to your school and talk to all those people. But my friends, as a former classroom teacher and as a mom who has been through this, there are some things that I'm like, look, you don't even have to do that. If your child is nonverbal, please, I am begging you, do not send them to school. If they are under the age of 6, you don't legally have to. There's no reason, and you can say no to their program with no repercussions for you. Under the age of 6, prioritize getting that 40-hour ABA program like your life depends upon it. If your child is not potty trained, please do not send them to school, because you do not want them figuring that piece out at school. If they are under the age of 6, I beg you, please don't do that. Natalie says in Canada, ABA is completely private pay at as much as $160 an hour. No insurance will cover it all. And that is, Natalie, I don't even know what to say, because that's terrible. There are programs now that you can be doing ABA. You can learn how to do them at home. If you're interested, I have a pilot program where I'm looking for a couple of parents, and I can give you access to one of those programs for free. Write to me, Shannon at autism-live.com. Lucy says, I pulled my child out of school when he was 4 and had him in ABA center-based. It was the very best decision we ever made. No regrets. I say to parents a lot of times, they'll have a 3-year-old and the school sells it, right? Because they want to be welcoming of the students, right? And they sell it. They're like, we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and we're going to do this, and it sounds good, and it sounds familiar. We know what school looks like, right? And so parents say, well, we're going to, we got a 40-hour prescription from an insurance, said they're going to pay for it, but what we're going to do is we're going to split the difference, because we don't really know. We're not really experts in this, but, school. So we're going to do school 20 hours, and we're going to try to fit 20 hours of ABA in. And I just have to tell you, it's just a recipe for disaster. And parents don't realize it until 3 years later, when their child is still in a special day classroom and they see other kids that are making more progress and aren't in a special day classroom anymore. And they're like, how come other kids are having conversations and my child isn't? Let me tell you why. Because when your child is diagnosed, you have that funding for that robust 40-hour program. You really do. If you squawk, you'll get it, right? And I say, instead of saying, hey, let's split the difference and we'll try both things, I always say to parents, let's do the opposite of that. Let's not do that. How about if you just try ABA at 40 hours, and let's say you try for 3 months. Just try it for 3 months and see if you don't see a big difference in your child. And if you don't, you can say, okay, that's fine. And then you can try this 2020 or whatever you want to do. But this is unknown to you. So I'm just going to ask you, please do this for 40 hours. Give your child this opportunity to see what happens. And can I tell you, of all the parents that have ever committed to that, not a single one of them has come back and said, the ABA thing didn't really work out and we didn't see that much progress, so we decided to go back to school? Not a single one, not once, never. What they said was, my God, I would not have believed how much more my child can learn in 40 hours. I can't believe how different things are. I can't believe how much happier my child is. I can't believe how much easier our days are. Now I can't wait to see what else we can get to. Please don't send your child to school without trying that first. Okay. I don't know what else to say about the school, except to say that when your child is 6, it all changes. When your child is 6, the day that your child turns 6, they legally have to be registered at the home school. And then you're into a whole other area, and you have to make sure that they have the IEP and all of those things. We've done lots of shows on that. I've got you for that as well. Check that out. But your child only has a certain number of hours a day when they are 3, 4, and 5, and you get to decide how they're using those hours. And if I could say to you, listen, all the things that you're hoping and dreaming for are possible if you give them this robust, intense ABA program, and you make sure that it's fun and it's fair, and you make sure that, and if your child is miserable, something's wrong. Like occasionally they'll get frustrated, but if your child is miserable, this is not the ABA program, right? You should see your child being happier. You should see their world starting to make sense, right? You have to give them this opportunity. I'm just begging you. Everything depends upon it. I'm not going to mamby-pamby it. But don't work with somebody who belittles your child. Don't ever work with somebody who takes away your child's self-esteem. That's not ABA. That is antithetical to good ABA. And when you are having, I always encourage you, especially the younger your child is, make them give you some sessions in the home and get a baby monitor and watch what they're doing. And if you don't see them being kind and encouraging and making it fun and fair, you're not with a good ABA provider. I think that most quality centers will require you at some point to let them come to the center and make sure that the center that you're in, that there's cameras in every single room. Make sure that, your child will tell you if they're going to the center and they're happy, then you know that good things are happening there. If your child, I would say the first week, your child is going to be like, I'm going to have separation anxiety. I don't want to be away from you. That is normal. But if your child continues to fuss, you got to have a meeting with those people and figure out what's going on, because your child should be happy to go to the center. They should feel like they're going to Disneyland. Okay, so let's move on, because we only have a few minutes left and we got so much to talk about. Now I want to get into the things that you're going to need to be able to make the things that we just talk about work. I mentioned before, you got to have a team. It's really hard. Like Natalie, you were saying that, it's very, I don't know how anybody could afford to private pay for ABA, right? And so your team is going to look different, but you still need help. I don't know anybody who does this by themselves. So find whoever you can work with. Find people who can help you and to be a part of your team, and you will be surprised at who those people are. Like, I remember, talking with our friends and family and having an expectation of certain people were going to help me, and they just didn't. They couldn't. I laugh about it now. I was despondent about it at the time, but there were other people who stepped forward that were kind of surprising, that went, I can help. But you have to be willing. You have to be willing to say to people, this is what we're doing. You have to be willing to hear them if they say, I'd like to help. You have to be willing to help them to help you, because sometimes they have ideas about how they're going to help you and it's not helpful. But you need a team. And sometimes it can be people that are long distance, and other times it needs to be people that are there. But you have to let go of the idea that you can do this by yourself. It's not true. And what will happen is you will get sick. I've seen that happen all too often. So start to be brave enough to tell people that you trust and allow them in so that you have a team. Okay, let's move on to the next one. You need respite. Oh my gosh, you need respite so badly. And it's hard because sometimes you have to do so much work to get respite, and you're too tired to do the work to get the respite. And this is where sometimes having a team can help. I do think here in the United States, it's important. One of the best resources that I can give you is to call 211. Excuse me. You know how, I swear I'm allergic to something in the air conditioner. And I always come in and cough. You know how you can call 411 to get information, and get a phone number, right? You can call 911 to get a first responder. Well, in most cities in the United States and in some in Canada, you call 211, and the United Way has funded operators to be standing by to help you with support. I don't know what the best path is to respite where you live because it's different everywhere, but I want to encourage you to call 211 and ask them about respite. Ask them about other services that you might be looking for. The one cautionary thing that I will say to you about 211 is that they are court-mandated reporters, so we don't speak hyperbolically to them. I'm somebody who speaks hyperbolically all the time. I'm like, oh, I was so mad I could have, ripped my hair off. I just said I want to rip my hair off and run with my hair on fire down the street, right? That's hyperbolic. I'm not really going to do that. That's me exaggerating. Don't do that on the phone with these folks because they are court-mandated reporters, and if you say, I just want to jump off a bridge, they will assume that you're suicidal. Do you see what I'm saying? So speak honestly and openly, but not exaggeratingly with them. I didn't see, Lucy, you said yes, and shadow the sessions to learn. Parents need ABA training too. Yes. If they're not teaching you how to do the techniques, it's not a good ABA provider. And be greedy. Be greedy with them teaching you. I wasn't in the beginning because I was like, that is just my time. But eventually, I remember just saying one of our BTs, I want to know everything you know, right? Because I saw that it was the pathway to helping my son. Okay, but you need respite. You're not getting enough sleep, I can tell you that right now. And you need somebody that you trust to be with your child so that you can go just be. And sometimes, do something that's a hobby or fun. You cannot lose yourself in this path and do this successfully. So you need respite. Reach out to 211, or you can reach out to me and I'll help you to figure out what might be available in your area. Again, I'm Shannon at autism-live.com. Okay, next one that you need. Health cannot be denied. We are learning so much more about the importance of general health with autism. But it's everybody's health in your household, right? There are going to be a whole lot of things that you got to focus on, but you got to maintain health. Get everybody as healthy as you possibly can, and that starts with you. I know we all think it starts with our child, but remember the oxygen mask thing? They say you got to put the oxygen mask on yourself and then on your child. You have to be healthy, which means you have to be rested, or you won't make good choices, right? So make sure you do your regular doctor appointments, get your tests done. I don't know. I just got my thing saying it's time for the mammogram again. Ugh, hate that. But you got to go and do it, right? What's the alternative? It's not good. I've seen it happen. So have a friend, maybe it's a long distance friend that you don't get to see, but you just check in with them and say, I need to be accountable to you, that I got to go get my mammogram. I got to get my pap smear. If you're a dad, that you've got to go and get your PSA score, right, on your prostate. Everybody has to get colonoscopies. You got to go to the dentist. It's a drag, but you got to be as healthy as possible because this is a marathon, not a sprint. And I've seen too many parents, myself included, get sick and then not be able to help our child then. So our children have to, be as healthy as possible, which means eating the rainbow, reducing pesticides, all those things. Okay, we have all kinds of shows about this if you're interested in more information. Okay, on to the next one. This is critical. In these first couple years of intervention, you're going to have to edit. You don't have enough time, and you don't have enough bandwidth to do absolutely everything. So you're going to have to decide what's essential, and that's different for everybody, right? That's your personal preference, what's essential, and then you're going to have to put everything else on the back burner. It isn't forever, my friends. I'm really disappointed when I see families going on 10-day vacations during early intervention, because it never goes well. And I could tell you all the horror stories in the world, but it never is what they thought it was going to be. It's a much better plan to take a weekend here and a weekend there. I'm not saying don't take vacation. I just did the respite thing, right? Take vacation. But if you go on a 10 or a 20 or a 30-day vacation with your child, I'm going to tell you something. At 7 days, your child starts to regress. So they're forgetting things that they've been learning, and that you're going to have to make it up. And you're going to get behavior. And it's too far away unless you are an expert planner and you know how to keep your child engaged. You're already going to see behavior. It's not the vacation you were hoping for. I'm going to beg you, postpone the long vacations for a couple of years. Make a plan for it in 2, 3, or 4 years, and it will be a better vacation. You can celebrate how great your child is doing then. Take shorter vacations in early intervention. And sometimes you're going to have to say no to people that, and I know there are people who have not forgiven me for the things that I said no to while we were in early intervention. Guess what? I've let it go. They have not. And I'm like, you're entitled to your feelings. But I could not be all the things to all the people that I had been while I was doing this for my son. And I made my peace with that. First, I tried to, and then I got sick. Don't do that, my friends. You got to edit. There's Parenthood, the show, was out then, and I remember there was an amazing episode, and I was able to, I'm not going to be able to remember his name, the writer, the showrunner, Jason Katims. I was able to meet him and say to him, this one particular scene meant so much to me, because there's the one character, the guy who, he's got 3 brothers and sisters, and he's been the leader for all of them. They all come to him and dump their problems on him, and he's always the person that helps. And suddenly his son has been diagnosed with autism, and he's got more things to do. And he's doing all of them, but his family has not changed, and they keep wanting all the same things from him until it finally comes push to shove, and he says to his brother, hey, I can't do this for you anymore. And the brother's like, how dare you abandon me in my time of need? And he says, I'm in a time of need. I need to do this for my family. My son needs me right now. You're an adult. Manage your stuff, And I remember sobbing when I saw that. I was like, I could relate, right? But you do have to say no. People just are going to keep doing what they do. You have to say no to them. Okay, I think we have 1 or 2 more, and we're out of time here. But I can't read it at all because I've gone blind. I cried too much. It is helpful to find local and long-distance support. There's so much online now. COVID made sure of that. Groups that you can join so that you can have a safe place to talk with other parents. There are all kinds of things on Facebook. There are all kinds of things. I encourage you to go to TACA, TACAnow.org. They have coffee talks that are online and in person. All kinds of groups that are there to help you. So TACAnow.org is my favorite, but check out what's appropriate for you. And then I think 1 more or 2 more? I don't know. Oh, no, this is the last one. Find ways to celebrate. Don't leave that out. You know what? It's kind of baked into a really good ABA program because you need to celebrate every time your child meets another milestone. Every time they're able to do something that they couldn't do 5 minutes ago, you need to celebrate with them, right? But also celebrate everything. I remember in early intervention, I kind of lost sight of this. And then we had a birthday party for my son, and everybody got to be with us. And it was so life-affirming. And I remember posting something on Facebook and saying, I forgot that the celebration is the thing that I will remember. And truthfully, like, I can remember hard days like they were yesterday, but that's not what I focus on a daily basis. What I remember is all the little and big celebrations that we had, all the victories that we had. We used to do a thing we discovered because we didn't have centers back then. A lot of our intervention was in our home, and that was good and bad for different reasons. We know that the kids learn 90% faster in the center. But, there were some things that were good about being at home. But one of the hardest things was when the last BT left for the day, and my husband would walk in the door from work, and, I had been trying to do whatever, and now I got to cook dinner. And for all three of us, it was like this hardcore shift of the day, and we just struggled. And then we decided that we need some sort of a palate cleanse. And what we decided to do was just put on one song. Every day when we were all there, we would, and the rest of the day was over, we would put on one song and we would just dance it out like they do on Grey's Anatomy. And so we would stand there in the living room and just dance it out. And we did that for most of the time that my son was having therapy. And then we stopped. I don't know why. And we talk about it all the time because that is what we remember. That is what all of us remember, dancing in the living room at the end of a hard day. So find your way to celebrate big and small. Don't leave it out because these years are precious. They're intense and they fly by, but they're precious and you want to have good memories of the victories. So find your way to celebrate. There's so many more things, but those are the most important things. Don't miss this time. Don't mamby-pamby, don't put it off, don't wait. If you've got the diagnosis, get that early intervention, get it intensively, and act like it is the most important thing. Because if you do, I promise you, your child's life will look so different than it would if you hadn't done it. Their ability to communicate will be stronger. You will have solidified their best path forward. I'm sending you all a hug. If you have questions, write to me. I'm here for you, but don't waste this opportunity and don't waste it on school. I beg you. All right, we're back next week with Ask Dr. Doreen and a great, great show on Wednesday with a great, great guest. Until then, oh, thank you, Lucy. I just adore you. But until we're back next week, a hug for you and a hug for your kiddo. We'll see you then. Bye-bye for now. If you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.